Good morning, everybody. My name is Jack Dangermond, and it gives me great pleasure on behalf of all of my colleagues at Esri around the world to welcome you to the 40th Annual Users Conference. This year, it's different. We're not in San Diego, we're not in Palm Springs, we're actually right back home in Redlands. About 200 meters from here, 40 years ago, we had our first Users Conference, but it was only 11 people. So it was definitely something very different. I want to begin by thanking you first for connecting in and being here with us, helping us create this community and of being together, people that are doing GIS around the world. I guess I need to acknowledge that this is a challenging time for you and me, for all of us actually. We have not just one issue, COVID, but we have a kind of multi-challenging aspect of all of our lives today. It definitely is COVID. It's definitely the impacts of COVID on jobs. Our world is talking about the issues of racial disparity, racial inequities, racial need to balance things. Again, get rid of issues like racism, hate, these sort of things that trouble all of us around the world. Listen, on top of those challenges, we have issues of the economy and jobs and your health. And at this very time, we also are living at a time of polarized political activities, not just in our country here, but around the world. And it's difficult for us. But at the same time, we're holding, in the midst of all of that, this meeting with now actually over 80,000 of you connected right now live. These are a special audience of people that are exactly the people that are challenging many of these issues. Many of you are science people, you're data people, you're analytics oriented, you're thinking about solutions. So it's quite an extraordinary time when you really think about it. And I have the great pleasure of hosting you for the next couple of days to go deep on technologies, but also see some of the work that you are doing, which is, from my perspective, totally inspiring. To begin this conference, we put a short video together. We call it GIS in the Time of COVID. So I'd like to have our people show this now.
As our world gets smaller, and what happens somewhere else hits closer and closer to home. There's so much the world wants to know.
We don't know a lot of things.
There's a lot of questions out there.
People very insecure.
It's not enough to know we're interconnected. We have to understand how and collaborate to build a better future. Your answers matter more than ever. Thank you for your vital work.
Yes. So beyond simply welcoming you here and thanking you for being here, it's my great pleasure on behalf of the world to thank you for your work. It's just extraordinary and very meaningful to all of us, frankly. The purpose of this meeting is largely the same purpose as we had 40 years ago when there were only 11 of us. And it was to connect and show each other's our work, create some new friends, create a kind of sense of understanding, and get inspired, and also have some fun. Well, this is not San Diego. We can't, have exactly the same experience. But let me just say, we are intending to do all of these things in various ways. And this is our first year of doing virtual, but I think it won't be our last year. And we're going to give it our best, ladies and gentlemen. At the beginning of this meeting, it's also important that you know who you are. First, this 80,000 group of people right now online, which to me is a little bit, how would you say it, intimidating in a way. But then I just begin to think about who you are. And I realize I'm safe, I'm your friend. And you are rich in diversity. You come from virtually every country on the planet, dialed in right now. And you have different backgrounds, different disciplines. You come from different sciences. Some of you are teachers, some of you are planners, some of you are working in government, some of you are working in the private sector, some of you are working in NGOs. And normally what we do at the live conference in San Diego is we have everybody stand up for a moment and turn to their neighbor and introduce themselves to a total stranger. And this has the effect of opening people's eyes to the connectedness of us, building new friends. And so, in a way, I can't do that now, but in a way, I want that same experience for you. So imagine that you're there. Imagine that you turn to your right or your left and you explain to somebody totally new from a different land, perhaps with a different discipline, what you do. And the remarkable thing is that while they're often very different from you, they're also connected. They understand your language because they are practicing with the same kind of dedication and spirit that you have, the science of geography and its applications and the use of GIS in many ways. I like to think of you as a global community, and the footprints of amazing work that you are doing, as evidenced in that short video, is, well, it's energizing to me. Every day I wake up, I have the same sense of purpose that I had 50 years ago as a young student starting Esri. And I know somehow that so many of you have had those lights turn on in your life, and it's just like no turning back, because it's such a powerful, important thing that you are doing, and I appreciate it. I get the privilege to go through so much of your work. In the last month, I've looked at thousands and thousands of your maps, and I'd like to share some of those because they give a kind of profile of the important work you're doing. You are working in environmental monitoring and modeling and assessments. For example, the real-time weather example in Japan, or looking at whale tracking off of Alaska. Look at this interesting map in the upper right about Arctic biodiversity. It's really opened my eyes to the richness of what's there. Some of you are working on Amazon deforestation, and others are creating new integrated landscape approaches for bringing it all together in a sustainable way. These examples show your work in natural resources and agriculture and aquaculture. These examples in the center here just fascinate me because I had no idea. Managing honeybee colonies, moving them back and forth for pollination across the United States every year. In the left, we see sustainable forest management planning. And in the upper right, we see your work in creating renewable energy, our future? Well, these are but a few. And these examples show the richness of your work in managing land information. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is central to a civilized society, to a modern society. The organization of property rights, who owns what. And we think about this as a system of record keeping, yes, but look at the interesting examples of how you're using it to look at taxable property value or what's happening with subdivisions. Or here, one of my favorites is up in the upper left, 3D well leasing. This means property leasing in 3 dimensions as it relates to wells. Many of you are working on creating our future. This means urban design and planning. The little example there in downtown San Francisco is showing urban design of buildings. Your work extends, for example, finding housing for homeless in Los Angeles, or this great piece of work in Jakarta of interactive community planning, making more inclusive the planning process. And there are just hundreds that I can't share you of examples. GIS has moved into buildings and campuses and cities to visualize them like this great BIM model brought into GIS for visualization. But visualization is only the beginning. You are now using GIS to do indoor space management. You're also doing analytics with GIS and buildings and doing navigation. For example, my old alma mater, Harvard, now has routing from building to building, from room to room. It's remarkable work, actually. And this is just the beginning. In the field of transportation, you are not only interconnecting and building the fabric of interconnections, but you're looking at powerful things like accident analysis, being able to detect things and then fix them. Some of you are working on highway operations, looking at dashboards of what's going on in real time. And look at the railroads and lightning strikes. Wow, that's putting 2 GIS layers together. And it goes on into modeling. I'm particularly fond here of what the Bavarians are doing in object recognition using AI and machine learning. Engineers, public works organizations around the world are using it for asset management and also in operations, being able to track vehicles and be more efficient about it. But here I'm attracted to the green one, that shows infrastructure planning, targeting where money should be spent on a rational, science-based method next. This is also extensively used in water and wastewater management. You're working in dashboards showing water consumption spatially and water quality spatially, and what areas need water main breaks, managing your field people, and doing lots of analytics, actually. Utilities of all types, electricity and gas, are now supporting a complete life cycle of designing using powerful network design tools for fiber, for example, and then management, and then planning for the future. But I'm attracted on this set of slides to the green one, which shows network availability. And I suspect for many of you, this will ring bells because network access to the internet, in these times particularly where kids have to stay home, can define the digital divide. So very powerful work here. In the field of public safety, you are making communities safer. You are responding to emergencies, not only statewide, for example, in Arizona, but look at the work with NextGen 911. Our partners here of Rapid SOS and Geocom have come together and they intend to put in NextGen 911 systems across the whole country. But also in crime analysis, in fire analysis, in emergencies of all type. You are not only looking at the data, but also increasingly using GIS to link citizens for citizen reporting, a more inclusive strategy for public safety. We face, you and I, disasters happening around the world. Some of it is caused by climate, others just naturally occurring. Right now, this week in Japan, monsoons, flooding, are resulting in depths of water, enormous flooding like 10 meters thick, deep. It's amazing, actually. Well, your work is responding. It's responding to typhoons and earthquakes and fires. Look at the map of the Amazon, the fires that were damaging and wiping out landscapes last fall. Remote sensing is enriching GIS in multiple ways. These examples show, first, simple work, like using imagery as a base map to do updating of base maps, features on a base map. But then simple applications like extraction of land cover from imagery, multispectral data. And then it gets more interesting. Feature extraction, the use of GeoAI tools. And on the lower right, there's estimates of snow depth from remotely sensed data so that we can forecast how much runoff will occur and what the farms will be, what the water levels will be with respect to farming. Imagery is becoming more real time, and we see this with radio frequency capture, like tracking ships. But we also see almost real time, like the great work being done by Planet Labs, where they're downloading imagery almost in real time. This is an example of their work on responding to the floods last week in Michigan. These are just a few interesting maps that I picked up as I was going through. And my favorite is the one in the lower right showing wine consumption in Europe. And I had no idea that per capita, England is ahead of France and Italy. All right, this is supposed to be a joke, but it probably doesn't come across virtually. Anyway, I thought it was completely charming. Look at the map on Mars colonization. This was done by a young high school student looking hopefully not to the future, but it was interesting, not much the same. GIS is being used extensively in business these days. Businesses are waking up to the power of it, not only to do site selection, the best location of distribution centers, but also real estate. And look at the one in the lower left. This is a set of public-private relationships where governments are looking to where to target loans and grants in these difficult times to small businesses that are vulnerable. Or for many communities, they have websites that show businesses that are open and not. This is the year for census in the United States. The 2020 census is being carried on a lot by the aids of GIS and geography. And it's an extraordinary event because it's not just national, it's state and local. And then there's a few maps that I'm just picked out of what you shared of what people are displaying from census information. Interesting work right across the board. Public health has been enormously blessed, in a way you would say, by the application of GIS. And this extends into social equity. These maps of disease trends like malaria and African swine flu show relationships and patterns. Also, the rest of the maps show this issue that's on all of our minds today, social equity, racial and ethnic disparities on things like COVID, social vulnerability, access to food stores, healthy food stores, and it goes on and on. GIS is not just about making interesting maps, it's being used for analytics that help people really not only understand, but make important decisions. This is the time of COVID, and we have seen your work show up in thousands and thousands of dashboards around the world, in poor countries and rich countries. Some of them are focused, like executive decision support, shown there in Baton Rouge. And others are open for the public to see what's going on. Hospital admissions, patient status, cases, deaths. And these maps in the lower right are showing operations work of dashboards, like what's the potential impact of COVID on operations for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, or firefighters that are impacted, and it goes on. This is not just dashboards. Your work goes much deeper in creating responses. The work in Tacoma is about looking at forecasting case demand and assessing it against hospital resources, getting right down to the details of IUC beds and people that are available. Or looking at social distancing in London, walking on the streets. Your work in statistical analysis and spatial temporal analytics is affecting Jakarta, it's affecting the whole US in these interesting maps from Johns Hopkins. Testing sites and picking the right location is important, and understanding vulnerable urban populations. All of these are part of your work. Listen, I'd like to take a moment and share with you a short video like I did before, showing some of your work, amazing work. Can we show that right now, please? That's great. As the video said, be proud of your work. I'm very proud of your work. I mean, it's meaningful. It's meaningful to all of us because so much of it was done not as part of your job description. You stood up these sites, you did the investigative work, you supported people. I mean, it was just heroic work no matter how you measure it. And so thank you for that. Each year, we give out a series of Special Achievement in GIS Awards. This year, these are the ones that are being given here in the United States. These are organizations who represent people who've done especially effective GIS efforts. These are the ones around the world. And it's actually quite a list of people. However, it's a very small fraction of our user community, less than 1/100th of 1%. And we pick these people out because we like to, of course, make them feel good. That's always nice. I love to make people feel good through acknowledgement. That's important in life, that we acknowledge each other. But it also is a way for us to highlight what I'd call great GIS practices. And so, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, congratulations. Normally, I would have you stand up in our audience of 15 or 20,000 people, and other people could recognize you firsthand, because in some ways there's no greater acknowledgement that we can give GIS people than to be acknowledged in front of their peers. Only they really know what it took to build the systems, to get the support, to do the right science, to build the right workflows, to create the right maps, to do the right, all those things that all of you in this audience do. So it's my great pleasure to acknowledge you and say congratulations, but I also want to encourage you to share your work. And normally we would be sharing all week, but Now we won't. So please look for these people to publish their work, presented at conferences, and hopefully next year we'll be back together and we can do it once again. Each year we pick a few people for very special awards. This year, the Making a Difference Award is going to Johns Hopkins University, the Center for System Science and Engineering, for their amazing work. These people collected data from many sources, brought it together, did all of the manipulation to get it correct, and then published it. This organization made, ladies and gentlemen, over 1 trillion maps in the last few months. Billions every day. And billions of people saw them. So the map was interesting, but more importantly, it woke up the world to seeing it in context. We began to understand what started in China or emerged in New York would move here, and we could begin to forecast where that would go. It's an amazing, amazing thing. And so I would like to recognize personally and on behalf of our entire community, first Mr. Dong, who is a young graduate student who came up with this idea, and then his team, and then his leader, Dr. Lauren Gardner, for bringing this together, doing the work, as I say, not just having the idea, and then standing it up, making it scale, all of those important things. And so once again, congratulations to you on behalf of our community. You had a huge impact, and also on behalf of the entire world. Thanks for what you did. You helped all of us. We also give an Enterprise GIS Award each year, and this year it's being given to the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development because they implemented a complete enterprise GIS in their highway department. This is an amazing event. As I studied this further, they've got GIS with every field person in their organization. Last year, about this time, they were getting on a plane, flying back to Louisiana because a huge hurricane was coming, and they stood up the response system for it. I am certain they saved lives and saved a lot of, and they just did a great job. And so, like Johns Hopkins, I'd like to acknowledge Brad Duchette and his amazing team for doing their work. It shows us across the community, across the world, in front of these 80,000 people, what really it looks like to have a great enterprise GIS system in transportation. This year, we're also giving an Enterprise GIS Award to Enel Green Power. This is likewise a company that has implemented GIS across their entire organization. And it was selected not only because of some of their creative work, but also because it's doing pioneering work in renewables. Now, Enel Green Power is one of the largest renewable energy companies in the world, with power coming from wind, as it's shown here in the diagram, and also from solar, and also from geothermal, and also from hydro. They're bringing and tapping into this amazing vision of making our world green power generated. So I'd like to acknowledge them, and particularly Keith Aubin and his core team here for the work that they're doing, not just the technology work, but also the push and the creative work that they're doing in showing us the way to build methods to generate power in new ways. The last award is, well, in some ways it's my favorite award because it's my award. The other awards are given by very carefully reviewing thousands of applications and nominations, but this one I just get to pick. And so I pick it because I'm drawn to this one. This is the regional municipality of York in Ontario, Canada. For those of you who don't know the geography here, it's due north of Toronto, and it's a regional government. But we are giving this award because this organization built one of the first pioneering shared infrastructure systems for GIS. It's really geospatial infrastructure at its best. And it involves many other local organizations working with utilities and others So I'm giving this especially this year, and congratulations to York. And I think we have John Howling, who runs this organization, coming in from York right now. So John?
Thank you, Jack. What a wonderful acknowledgement of our incredibly talented team. Together, working with our partners, we are connecting our world here in York Region. And we're doing this through a culture of collaboration that encourages sharing, breaks down silos, and puts our collective data to work.
Well, thank you, John. That wasn't exactly live that they came in. He made that video and asked that we would share it. But again, I would like to invite you to connect with John and his team, amazing team actually, because they're pioneering not just new technical ways of implementing infrastructure, but also the social stuff, the institutional stuff, building the right partnerships for sharing. And it's really working. So I invite you to go up there next time you're in the region of Toronto.